we should get going here. I think pretty well everybody's here. Janet. So a call to order, disclosure of pecuniary interest under the Provincial Conflict of Interest Act. Anybody got a conflict of interest here? None noticed. Approval of the agenda. There is just one thing I'd like to add at the end, is an update on new members of this committee. There's a process underway just to kind of update everybody as to where it is right now. Has anybody else got anything else they would like to talk about at the end? Nope. Everybody's quiet this morning. The minutes of the last meeting. Has anybody got any comments on them? Everybody's so quiet.
That's the joy. Everybody knows how to use the mute button now.
Yeah. Takes a while to get used to this, but this is almost getting to be normal, which is scary.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Can I take my mute? Can I take my mute button back to home at night?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna touch that.
That's going to cost you a scotch.
Yeah.
We got that one on record.
Yeah. Is this being broadcast? Anyhow, okay. So nothing heard. Nothing wrong with the meeting. The minutes. That's great. Draft development background study. Development charges background study. I guess Dan, you're on.
Great, thank you. Just to help walk through the process, I'd like to go through at a high level the presentation that Watson and Associates provided to our stakeholders this week. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen if Devlin can access that.
You should be able to, Dan.
It says host disabled screen sharing.
Let's see if we make you a co-host. How about now?
Perfect, thank you. Hopefully that pops up on everybody's screen.
Yep, I got it.
Okay, perfect. So like I said, I'm just going to go through it at a high level. I may skip over a few slides, but I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. So Watson did this presentation on February 2nd. In terms of the process that we've gone through so far, most of the work in behind the preparation of the study happened throughout 2020. We were somewhat delayed due to COVID-19, but we were able to get the report on the website on December 23rd, 2020. We did have an addendum report released on January 27th. We had the stakeholder meeting with various builders and developers. I think we had 11 builders and developers in the meeting, which was really good. And then the public meeting is set for February 18th, and we're hoping to have bylaw passage March 29th at the council meeting in March. There's been a lot of changes to the Development Charges Act since inception, but more recently there's been a lot of changes. So I'll just go through some of the higher level stuff that have impacted us recently. Bill 108, which is the More Homes, More Choice Act, passed in 2019. The big change here for us is for any rental housing and institutional developments, they're able to pay DCs now over 6 years, 6 annual payments. Nonprofit housing developments can pay DCs over 21 equal annual payments. So that's a significant departure from owing DCs at building permit issuance. Because of this, we're also able to charge interest from the time that the DC is calculated to the time full payment is made. And council passed a bylaw in relation to DC interest not too long ago. Also with Bill 108, if a application goes through a site plan or zoning bylaw amendment, the DC rates are frozen at the time that application is submitted, and they can be frozen up to 2 years. So if an application goes through one of those processes, we freeze their DC rates at the time the site plan or zoning amendment application starts. Bill 197, the COVID Economic Recovery Act in 2020. There's not too much here that impacts us. The main thing here is, if you'll recall from previous DC studies, we have some services that had to have a mandatory 10% statutory deduction to the calculation. These were for mainly parks and recreation fees and administration fees. And what that was whatever we calculated the impact of growth was, we had to take another 10% off the calculation. We no longer have to do that. We do the calculation of the impact on growth, and we no longer have to take the 10% off the calculation. The other significant change for us was we could only plan forward 10 years for certain services like parks and rec and administration. We can now go beyond 10 years. So if we know growth and the impacts of growth beyond 10 years, we can look beyond 10 years. Bill 197 didn't really impact us much. This gives the ability to set up what's known as a community benefit charge. And that would be a charge on applications based on market value of land of eligible properties. We're not doing this at this time. It's only for higher density development, 5+ stories, 10 or more residential units. So at this time, everything we need to recover from a growth perspective is in our DC study, and we don't need this community benefits charge. As you can see, there's a lot of bills impacting DCs lately. Bill 213 didn't really impact us. It was really just exempting DC payments to universities. So this is the high-level overview of how DCs are calculated, but from a simplistic approach, what it is first of all determining what the growth is going to be within the township. We have growth numbers showing that we need to grow to approximately 52,000 people by 2041, and then there's associated non-residential growth in that growth forecast as well, which we'll look at in a minute. So with that, we need to identify what services are needed to accommodate that growth, and then what capital costs are required to provide those services to this growing population and growing community. From there, there's various deductions we need to make in terms of if what we're building is going to benefit the pre-existing community, or if there's any grants or subsidies that we are anticipating on the projects. Once we've deducted those, we have the net costs to service this new growth. We divide that by growth and it gives us the DC charge. So that's a high level look at how the calculations are actually made. And there's a correlation between development charges, the services themselves, and rates, taxes, and reserves. To the extent that we exempt or provide credits from a DC perspective, we need to offset that with alternate funding. So if we decide to give an exemption in a certain area, some other source of funding has to pick that up, and it's usually either taxes or water wastewater rates. These are the services we currently have in our DC study. There are in 3 different categories. The township-wide services are services related to a highway, which are really your roads-related services, roads and active transportation. We have fire protection, parks and recreation also in that area. In our classes, which are treated more or less the same as services, township-wide, we have public works and growth-related studies. And then our urban area services are water and wastewater. So you would only have to be building in the urban area to be charged the water wastewater charge. Otherwise, if you're building in the rural areas where water and wastewater isn't an available service, you're not charged that rate. This is looking at the growth forecast. As I mentioned, growing to 52,000 people by 2041 means we're growing by approximately 20,000 people in the next 22 years. 21 years, 22 from the start of this report in early 2020. And the anticipated growth in non-residential square footage is 6.9 million square feet of non-residential growth. And that is translated from a square foot per employee calculation that Watson does to estimate how many square footage in addition to what we have now will be built over the next 22 years. This is the residential growth forecast. The red line represents historical over the last number of years at 160 units. You can see going forward beyond the black, which is historical, you can see projected growth ramping up over time, an average of 292 units starting in 2020 going forward. And then by 2026, that ramps up to 428 units. And you can see the split there. The dark blue is the low density residential, the light blue is medium density, and the orange is high density. This is the capital summary of what's in the DC study, and this is up to addendum 1 in the report. So we've identified 321 million in gross capital costs of capital projects. 45 million of that is considered a post-period benefit, and what that means is it's servicing growth beyond 2041, so beyond the 52,000 people, leaving a net capital cost of roughly 276 million. There's a benefit to the existing community of 56 million, so that's benefiting the community that already pre-exists today. We have roughly 30 million in grant subsidies and other contributions, and what that is really what we call local service, which is costs that developers have to pay directly when they're building a subdivision, for example. That leaves a net amount to be recovered by development charges of roughly 191 million, and that's split between residential DCs and non-residential DCs. So non-residential share of that is roughly $43.4 million to be recovered over the 22 years. We had a lot of support going into the study, various master plans that were completed over the last number of years that feed into the determination of how we service this growth. The Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan, the Transportation Master Plan, Fire Master Plan, Water Supply Master Plan, and the Trails Master Plan were the key inputs into the calculation. We also had help from Triton Engineering on some of the cost estimates, and in some cases, we've had to apply inflationary factors because all of these plans are not in 2020 dollars. So we had to apply capital inflation in some cases. Sky is not the limit in terms of what we put in the DC study. There's a ceiling in terms of how much we can put in the calculation, and that's based on the 10-year average level of service that we've been providing over the last 10 years. So this shows a comparison of that maximum ceiling level of service to what we've utilized in the DC study. So as an example, based on the level of service we've been providing in the last 10 years, we could put up to $731 million of roads related projects into the study. We've only identified 72 million. So there's this excess amount in the calculation that we could potentially put in, but we don't have any need for it at this point. And that's the case for all of the services. We're not really coming up to the maximum ceiling in terms of what we could put into the DC study. So as I mentioned, we did most of the services over a 22-year period. The only exception to that is just going on to, I think the studies and the Parks and Recreation calculation were actually going on a 10-year forecast, just because I believe the Recreation Master Plan was over a 10-year forecast where, for example, the Transportation Plan and the Water Supply Master Plan were over the full period to 2041. So we're able to stretch out the forecast on those services. This is the calculation of the rates as of Addendum 1, which is posted on our website. So single and semi-detached, full township-wide and urban, totaling $27,578. You can see the other residential categories there. Non-residential is on a per square foot basis, and it's sitting at $8.14 in the urban area. In the rural area, you wouldn't have to pay water, wastewater, so it would be $4.71 per square foot. I would like to point out we're currently working on an Addendum 2 to the study, which is actually going to drop some of these rates. So we will be releasing that hopefully in the next few days. Like I said, it'll bring these numbers down a little bit. This is a comparison of the current rates for a single and semi-detached dwelling unit in comparison to the calculated rates. So currently we're charging roughly $24,000 for a single semi-detached dwelling unit. The current calculated rate is around 27,000, but like I said, it's going to be down closer to the current rate once we release addendum 2. This is the non-residential. We're currently charging $6.69 per square foot. That actually dropped when we did the 2018 DC study. It was up in the high $7 per square foot, but it dropped at that point in time because we had not completed a lot of the master plans, so we couldn't feed some of that capital requirement into the calculation. So with this reset that we're doing in 2020, 2021, it brings the rate back up to over $8 per square foot. So it did have a dip there for 2 years below $8 per square foot. Now it's back up to where it typically was prior to 2018. We do have some mandatory exemptions when it comes to development charges. So applications that don't pay DCs or pay a reduced DC. The first one, which has been in the DC Act for quite a while, is for industrial building expansions. Industrial buildings can expand up to 50% of their gross floor area without paying DCs. But it's not a situation where they can expand and then their gross floor area is reset to the new rate and then they can do another 49% or 50% and not pay DCs. It's a cumulative from a fixed point in time. So there comes a point where if they keep expanding, they're going to start paying development charges because their cumulative increase has gone above 50%. A good example of that is Jefferson Elora. They've expanded a number of times to the point where they've started to pay DCs. We don't charge DCs to upper and lower tier governments or school boards if they're building. There's some exemptions around dwelling units. You can add up to 2 apartments for a single semi-detached as long as the size of the home doesn't double. You can add 1 unit to a medium and high density building without paying DCs. You can add 1 additional unit in a single semi-detached or row dwelling. And you can add 1 accessory unit like a granny flat to a new dwelling without paying DCs. We have a bunch of non-statutory exemptions. So these are not mandatory. These are at the discretion of council. See which I'm going to focus on what we're putting into the new DC study. So the first one is places of worship. So if a place of worship decides to expand, they would not pay development charges. Bona fide farm use. If a bona fide farm use decides to expand, they don't pay DCs. The big one that we have for enticing downtown growth, the water and wastewater residential and non-residential charges are reduced in the downtown core. So if someone's building an apartment above a commercial building, or they're building non-residential within the Elora Fergus downtown cores, then they don't pay the water wastewater DC. So that's an incentive that we've been providing for the last number of years to encourage growth in the downtown cores. 2 new ones for starting in March. Silos used for industrial, commercial, institutional uses would be exempt from DCs, and shipping containers, industrial, commercial, institutional uses would be exempt from DCs as well. One other policy change we're making is in terms of redevelopment credits. So if a development decides to demolish an existing residential unit or non-residential unit and then rebuild, they get a credit for the unit or the square footage that was demolished. And that credit applies to the DCs they would owe on the new building, as long as they build within a certain time period. So our policy is if they build within a 5-year period, they can take advantage of that redevelopment credit and pay less DCs. But if the development is actually being built on brownfields, that 5 years expands to 25 years. So you can build within 25 years of demolition on a brownfield and take advantage of these redevelopment credits. We talked about the zoning and site plan changes. We talked about that. So the survey that we did for comparing our DC rates to neighboring municipalities, we are currently where the red arrow is sitting right now from a residential perspective. So you can see where We're above some of the smaller municipalities like Guelph, Aramasa, Wellington North, Mapleton, Guelph, Aramasa, township-wide and so forth. But we're well below others like Guelph, Wellesley, and really a lot of the Waterloo region municipalities are quite a bit higher than us. And that's mainly because Waterloo region itself charges a lot of development charges. Once we release Addendum 2, I expect us to be probably down closer to where we are now. So instead of the blue arrow where Addendum 1 is showing we would move 2, which is jumping over Woolwich, we're probably going to be staying on the other side of Woolwich in this case. This is commercial development. So we're currently where the red arrow is, pretty low in the survey. So not too many municipalities lower than us, just some of the smaller municipalities within Wellington County. But like I said earlier, some of the other Waterloo region municipalities and the city of Guelph are quite a bit higher than us. And we're jumping over Wellington North in this case. Will be slightly more expensive than Wellington North on a per square foot basis. And this is industrial, same thing. We're on the right-hand side of the survey on the lower end of average, moving up a little bit, but not enough to put us above Guelph or Amasa, Guelph or Erin, and certainly not as high as the Waterloo region municipalities. So that was the presentation that was completed this week. Like I said, we have the public meeting on the 18th, and then council will consider the bylaw on March 29th. And as I referred to earlier, we're working on an addendum that are going to reduce the rates a little bit more before we look to pass the bylaw. So that concludes the presentation, and happy to take any questions that the committee has at this time.
Thank you very much, Dan. That's great. It's nice to see this stuff moving along. Does anybody have questions? I've got several, but I'd like to, anybody else want to go first? Bob? Yep. Can't hear you, Bob.
How's that? Sorry.
There we go. Yeah.
I said, I don't know if this is for Dan or Brett, but for this committee, we always talk about creating jobs. As the population moved, did we keep the same percentage of job growth? Because there was talk from both the province and the county that those job targets might not be at the same percentage. So I guess that leads to the second question. Do jobs per square foot, we used to manage them historically based on where we thought people worked, which might change going forward. So a bit more about how this impacts jobs.
Dan, do you know any of that stuff?
I think Brett's ready to answer.
Yeah, I think Brett's trying to. Yeah.
But hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Just on the growth forecasts, the forecasts that are in the county official plan that are the result of the last go round of forecasts within the growth plan. So that go to 2041, they significantly increase the number of jobs in the forecast. And those are the forecasts that we're required to use when we do our development charges bylaw. So, the county's in the process now because the province has now released growth forecasts all the way out to 2051. And so those will be coming. Certainly, as far as your second question about changes, I'm sure you're thinking because of COVID that whether people work at home, I'm sure that will be a change, but the growth forecasts that we have today and the ones that are pending that go to 2051, they will not yet account for that.
Okay, thanks, Brett.
Thanks. Anybody else? Got any comments? So I've got a couple things. When we started this, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, the DC charges, of course, are always an encumbrance on people making a decision whether to come here or not. And one of the things that we talked about with the industrial, commercial, not commercial, but industrial DCs was the parks and rec portion of it. I can see it being applied to a lot of other stuff, but industrial land doesn't really use parks and rec. their employees might, but they're paying it through their buying their house or whatever. Anyhow, just a consideration, Dan. There was a lot of discussion on it. Yes, Dan.
Thank you. I just want to point out that in the calculation itself, any costs that we need to recover through DCs from a Parks and Rec perspective are attributed 95% to residential growth. So there's only a 5% piece that goes to all of non-residential. So there'd be a tiny portion of Parks and Rec that would hit the industrial charge.
Okay. Anyhow, it was quite a discussion back a few years ago. And there was a couple of other items as well that seemed to be in the industrial, and it was just like they really didn't apply. And yeah, of course, economic development, we're trying to get people to build factories and all kinds of stuff here, and the easier we can make it for them is the better. The other thing I had, do we have any idea what the DC charges are in Orangeville? Because Orangeville is kind of almost a competitor for us. Do you have any idea?
I will take a quick look to see if I can find them.
I think that's the only other place that's sort of competitive with us.
And I've got the screen pulled up here. So they're singles and semis are $24,800 or $24,080. Townwide residential, just looking down.
It's more the industrial one that I'm thinking
Yeah, I'm just looking down. Non-residential is $91.59 a building meter squared. And theirs is very similar, Don, that they do hard surfaces is $75.55 and their soft surfaces are $16.04. And that's a meter squared.
That's a square meter.
Yeah.
So if I have this correctly, the translation is $8.50 per square foot.
Okay, so as long as we're
slightly below that, so
yeah,
we're more
well,
$8.
that's good. That's good. It's just they are a bit of a competitor for us. People moving north side of Toronto, which they can come this way or they can go that way, and as long as we're competitive, that's the key.
And yeah, just another thing, as I look at the screen, they also have a stormwater management charge as well, above and beyond their development. So just for, so they have a water distribution non-residential development charge, and they have that broken down in different areas, and a stormwater management charge as well. So
over and above that, so that's
yeah,
good. Well, that just puts it in a little better shape. That's
well, Dan and I would have to do a little digging, just the way they've separated some things out, but it looks like their overall charts.
Okay, well, that's good. As long as we're in there or a little better to try to attract businesses. I mean, that's the name of the game here. So anybody else got any questions on this? Yes, Brad.
This is just more of a comment than a question. The way we've been dealing with easing the magnitude of the charge that a non-res build pays at the time of building permit, and mainly on industrial, has been through a deferral. So a person has the ability under the Act to request what's called a late payment agreement. So this past year for JEC's large expansion that would have paid a significant amount, we've deferred their charges. I can't remember, Dan, if it was 3 years or 5. I think it was 3.
Yeah,
so they get 3 years to pay. And Sterling Marathon, which is a new company that's going on Park Road in Elora, they also applied for and received a deferral agreement. So they've got 3 years to pay. And I have to say, I don't think that when we brought forward deferral requests that council has turned it down so far. It may be something we want to talk about at this committee level, of making more of a sort of a formal policy in that regard, and perhaps setting out criteria where they don't always have to go to council for approval.
Okay. Anybody else got anything else on the development charges? Yes, Bob.
I don't know how else you do it, but I noticed that the densities, the difference between low, medium, and high densities, I assume you have to plan somehow, Dan, that they're at the same proportion of what we currently have, so there's even growth. Is there any risk or upside as we think there's higher level of density of apartment buildings and higher density units, or is it worth even changing the numbers?
I don't think that would be worth changing the numbers at this point. I don't know what you think, Brett.
Well, in the developer's presentation the other day, a similar question was asked,
Yeah.
and the response that came from Gary Scanlon was that as the number of apartments, for instance, increase, their DC is lower, but it's spread out against more units. So the amount of money that the municipality takes in wouldn't change significantly. The only what could change the charge over time is if there was a massive shift in the ratio of apartments to other unit types.
Okay,
But
thanks.
at the kind of incremental change that we're expecting, there's not really a need to go there. But I do think in the county updates to the growth forecasts, in the overall forecast, increasing the ratio of townhouse and apartment building forms is something that's being looked at.
Okay. Anything else, Bob? Good. Okay. All right. CIP next. Pat, could you do that? 5.2.
I can, John, thank you. Just wanted to bring this to the committee's attention because we have talked a lot about priority sites in this committee. And as we all know, that the former L&M site in Elora has been the topic of some discussion and has been a source of a lot of people would like to have seen it redeveloped. There has been great consternation in Elora about not having a grocery store, and we have attempted a variety of different ways of achieving that. And last July, Andy and I met with the owner, the daughter of the owner of the building, who was the operator of a grocery store in another municipality, and she wanted to transition from that role to refreshing and updating the grocery store, the L&M site in Elora. And since that time, we've been working with her quite a bit on getting her through the process of demolition, which she has literally gutted the building. Everything has been removed. It was right down to the studs. Everything was removed, including plumbing and electrical and everything. So everything in this new building is going to be completely fresh and new and clean and modern. And in order, our portion of trying to help her is helping her with the facade. As it's a priority site, she is eligible for the $20,000 level 2 facade improvement incentive. And we would, she has begun that process of the CIP with us, and we would like to get the endorsement of the Economic Development Task Force as it has to go to council for their approval as well. So this is just letting you know what's happening with that site and getting the endorsement of the committee to when it goes to council.
Let's get this. Has everybody got the pictures of it? The only comment I have is, can we give her some more money and change the stone?
I would love to. I don't have any way of doing that at the moment. She's had some really significant expenses with this property. Alone to do the roof alone is about $185,000.
I know, yeah. And she's really going at it.
She really has. She is. Andy and our CBO, Randy Bosens, and I have been over there. The mayor has been over there. We've all sort of seen it in its mid-construction phase, and she really has gone over and above in terms of this is going to be a completely refreshed building from anything that was there prior, and any concerns or memories people may have had of the previous L&M. This is going to be much a refreshed building.
Sorry, I couldn't resist that one.
I was going to say Peter can help her make some fake stone.
Yeah, exactly. Anyhow, it's I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think if somebody could make a motion that we support this.
Don, I think Brett was just going to make a couple comments.
Oh, was he? Okay. Yep. Where is he?
Yeah, I just wanted to make out, and maybe Pat can address this, by the township approving a CIP. There's also the county CIP that this application would get elevated to, and there would be additional funds available through the county of Wellington.
There are probably a minimum of probably another $10,000 worth of funding available from the county.
That's good.
Through their CIP, and I'm hoping to, considering the number of priorities at the county that this hits, I'm trying to talk them into more money, but I'm not sure that they have the discretion to be able to do that. But just Don, just to let you know that I did put sort of the draft of a motion at the top of the report. So
The motion's on the agenda as well,
Yeah.
Don.
Yeah, I see it right there. Okay. All right. Is all in favor of the motion 5.2? Anybody contrary?
You do need a mover and seconder for that as well.
Okay, so who'd like to move it? Bob?
So moved.
Seconder?
I'll second.
Tony? All in favor? Anybody contrary? No. It's good. That's a
Hey,
great
Don.
thing. A lot of
Chair,
people-
can I just make a quick comment?
Sure.
Yeah, just this made a difference to Deb for sure. Being able to access CIP funds, that made a difference in what she was doing. Not only the money, but the indication that the township was very supportive and would help out in this way. So any kind of that she would have done what she's doing without this, I think you can rest assured that this was very instrumental in her coming from Drayton to Elora, because she had a town that was going to embrace her through the CIP. So it's a really good example that this program actually works, and I'll be saying the same sorts of things when it comes to council.
Yeah, good. Anyhow, I think it's great. She's a great gal. She used to be here. She used to be in the Rotary Club, so I know her a bit. And I think all of us wish her very well with it. And I think that the whole town is going to be ecstatic when it gets open.
there's a great deal of excitement already.
Yeah,
She
I
hasn't
bet.
opened yet, so.
Yeah.
Is there a planned opening date? Do we have an estimated time? Is she looking at summer of next year, fall of next year?
She would like to do something in the spring, like open it in the spring. It'll just depend on how quickly she can get some of the things that she needs to get done.
Mhm.
I know that they're proceeding, and she has her building permit for the interior already. So things are progressing on the inside.
Good.
Anyhow, that's great. That's a great piece of downtown that is going to help keep things vibrant. Okay, number 6. Anything else on that? Anybody? No. Number 6, Community County of Wellington. Kelly, can you update us on what's going on there?
Sure. The biggest thing that I just wanted to talk to the committee about is the county has passed its budget. and we pushed that budget to the lowest increase in 20 years, over 20 years, a 1.2% increase. And the reason we couldn't go any lower than that, we ramped up significant amount of money to move towards organic pickup. So that added a couple $1 million to our operations. So even though we increased service levels in a couple of key areas, we still were able to get to a real low amount of increase. So that's good news. The other piece of good news is $200,000 in grant money is going to local businesses and small grants to support their businesses. There hasn't been much definition yet developed. We had to get the budget passed first. But we're looking at putting some criteria together to provide small grants to businesses who kind of need it. I'm envisioning something similar to what Center Wellington did when it comes to promotion and marketing, some grant money that businesses can tap into to do some of the things that they might not have the cash to do as they rebuild. So I know it's not a ton of money. The county already put $1 million to small interest loan. That really helped out. 39 businesses in Center Wellington used that fund, and it helped out there. But we recognize that loans aren't the way to go right now. Businesses are in enough debt right now. So I'll keep the committee apprised as to what the criteria is going to be for this $200,000 that's going to be rolled out pretty quick. The county does things pretty quickly, so I imagine Yana from the county and her team are going to be putting some draft criteria together pretty quickly, and I'll share it with the committee. I'm interested in hearing from this group as to what sorts of things we think that businesses here need, and make sure that we build those to the criteria for this fund. So that's the key thing that I wanted to bring up to the group right now. Oh, the only other thing that I want to mention is that SWIFT 2, so high-speed internet access, is moving ahead, and the feds and the province are both continuing to contribute through the SWIFT initiative to do high-speed internet to the rural areas. So that's continuing. The county has upped its investment in high speed through the SWIFT initiative to about $4.5 million over the next 5 years. So that's great, and that's the way we leverage federal and provincial money. It's good to see actual fiber going into the ground finally. So I mean, it connects as fast as people want it, but you're seeing things move really quickly. So we're hoping to get to over 90% completed in Wellington County by 2026. So that's pretty aggressive. And the projects that are going on right now are about 8 months ahead of schedule. So ATEL and Cogeco, they're both going full steam ahead. So we're starting to see some movement. And if anybody was at the most recent provincial conference, it basically all they talked about was high-speed internet. So it's becoming a real priority. And COVID has done, if there's any silver lining with COVID, it's really underscored how important high speed is to our rural communities. And the feds and the province are putting money there. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging the county's dollars to get more money there. And Wellington County's done really well in comparison to some of the other southwestern Ontario counties, and Center Wellington within the county has done really well. So some of our friends in Minto and Puslynch aren't that happy, but I am. So, and their turn will come, but right now we're starting to get some good projects done in Center Wellington, and that's kind of a county report.
Okay, that's great, Kelly. It's just got to get Cogeco coming out on the north side of the lake. Bob's in desperate need of fiber. Anyhow, it's good. It's all coming. And this really has underscored it. I mean, anybody out in the country here that goes on watch movies or something between 5 and 7, it's pretty bad. You know, it's pretty bad stuff. But anyhow, it's coming, and that's the important part. Anything else about the county? Anybody got any questions of the county at all? No. Okay. Next is Economic Recovery Working Group. So this is a group we got together about I guess a week ago, Pat, or roughly a week and a half ago.
Well, it's been operating on and off since last May.
Yes, it's the same group. We got a bunch of stuff done last spring, and then we've all been sitting back wondering what's going to happen. And fortunately, we've got the committee going again. There was a couple of reports. Do you want to do part of this, Pat, and then I'll pick up at the end? Yeah,
sure.
Okay.
Since the fall, both the as the Economic Development Task Force knows, both the Economic Recovery Committee did a survey of township businesses, and the county-wide Business Retention and Expansion did a survey just prior to Christmas. Both surveys were sort of overlapping, but overall, we got responses for 141 businesses in Center Wellington. That has given us some data on how COVID pandemic shutdowns have affected them to this point, or till that point, which is just prior to Christmas. It's also given us information on what kind of programs they had accessed, what kind of programs they currently need to access to survive. But unfortunately, all of this was prior to our most recent shutdown. So the situation, again, may have changed. It's, as everyone knows, very fluid. But we do have some data on that we can use to create some plans, some economic recovery plans moving forward. And the committee is looking at that data, and we'll be devising some plans to work with it. As well as staff are also working with the county on the funding that the mayor had just mentioned. And we had a meeting on Tuesday and worked through a lot of options for that funding as well.
Okay, so one of the things that came up was it's over and over and over again in the surveys that we did is the need for marketing. So Peter made a very good presentation on a program that he uses for marketing, and Crystal. So if we could get the county to get some marketing people that would then go to the businesses, and if we could get the county to fund that sort of cost, then I mentioned to Pat yesterday, maybe some of the money that the township puts in could actually produce brochures or help them with delivery of whatever it is the marketing people come up with. Anyhow, just a thought. It's just to try to get a combined effort going here but we've got another meeting next, what is it, Thursday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, yeah. So we're trying to get some numbers together as to what we can do, but the marketing over and over and over again in the studies, it's marketing. And so Peter put together some stuff, so we'll be talking about that. And it's anyhow, it's underway, and probably the next meeting we'll be able to give you a lot more detail on what we have in mind. So that's about where we are, Pat?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Working through it, and we'll have when we formulate a plan, we will certainly be bringing it to this committee for endorsement.
Yeah. Anyhow, we've got some ideas, and it's going to take just another week or maybe two to actually get it so that it's the direction that maybe we can follow, that we would recommend actually up to this committee.
Don, it's Tony. Just may I ask you a question? When you use the term marketing, I'm more interested to learn what type of marketing specifically, because from the Small Business Center, what our experience is, it really is about the use of different platforms and digital marketing, as opposed to what we might term as marketing from the past.
Right.
We find a lot of particularly small town Main Street businesses struggle to understand how to approach the web and what do you have to do to maximize your search optimization. And we use terms that frankly a lot of store owners don't understand. And I think there's a difference between what and Peter may agree on this, that the marketing needed is a very specific type of help using digital. And it goes back to what Mayor Linton said about the need for high-speed internet throughout our communities.
Tony, the responses that we got were actually not digital. They were actual materials. People needing assistance with graphic design and actual material production. So it wasn't just digital for us.
Yeah, so what the idea is, just to elaborate a little bit, just so we're not leaving you hanging here, is Crystal knows some people that are at the university. And so the idea is to maybe get a couple of marketing students, one or two, it depends whether it's all the county or whether it's just us, to get some marketing students that would then contact, in Center Wellington, we have most of the businesses, one way or the other, are in the BIA, the chamber, either BIA and the chamber. That gives us a really good base to start with. I think most are involved with one of them. And so the idea is to go to the people, go to each business and find out what they need, and then get these marketing students. There's a platform. And Peter, could you explain the platform just a little bit? You know it a lot better than I do.
Yeah. So essentially it's an outsource partner is what it is. And so what we had talked about, and to speak to your thing, Tony, yeah, this was more about the creation of pieces, essentially, marketing pieces that they could use digitally if they wanted to on Facebook or whatever the case was, but it's essentially the crafting and creation of marketing pieces. And from that perspective, I use with my businesses a company that is an outsourced partner where you literally put in, it's like a project management. So you tell them what you want done, and there's, you craft out what you want out of the project, and basically they spit it back to you. And it's all done through an I've been using them for, over a year now. And in since November, the previous year, I think I've done 580 projects for my businesses with them. So it's a proven method of doing it. And what we had talked about briefly was the idea that these students could be the collaborators, the people that are questioning the business owners and stuff like that, and actually inputting the data into this program, this app, essentially, so that the creators go ahead and create that and bring it back. The app will do video editing. They'll do, marketing pieces. They do copywriting. It's quite a thing. It's called Floxy. So if anybody wants to kind of check it out, you can look at it. FLOCKSY. So Floxy, I'll drop it in the chat as well, .com. And if anybody wants a back end, I can do, and I think I did it for you guys as well on the subcommittee, but I can drop that video of what the back end of it looks like. But essentially that was the idea. Use the students to get the information from from anybody that needs marketing help, and then use the tool to put it into production. And they spit off, a good amount of projects each day from that perspective, depending on the breadth of the project. So there's more to it than that, but that's the 3-minute version.
Thanks, Peter. I think does that help you, Tony? Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a program that we're aware of and have used, and I won't say we have used, but have recommended to a number of participants and clients of the center. I guess I was looking at it slightly different, that it was more, once you've made that, once you've got that material, how do you then use it to maximize your sales?
Right. Okay, so that's what I mentioned. If we can if Crystal can somehow or other get that sort of part of the cost by the county, then maybe we can talk to the township about how do we deliver this stuff. And that would be a direct help.
We did have the Digital Main Street grants out there for people who needed digital help too, right? So that was part of the digital side of things.
Anyhow, we're just trying to get it developed, so we'll bring it back to you again. But it sounds to me, yes, Janet?
So sort of on the same topic from the chamber perspective. So we did get, after our business recovery subcommittee meeting last week, we did hear that the chamber was successful in getting the grant. that we at Innovation Guelph is to create a coupon booklet, and we're working with the Wellington Advertiser to do that. And this coupon booklet will be going out to all the residents in Center Wellington. And knowing that print media is one piece of media which targets one type of demographic, and then you can lump that with digital media. We're just trying to support businesses and have different touch points for businesses to be able to have interaction with people within the community. So looking at providing coupons for some retail businesses, but also a lot of space that people can put business card type size ads that maybe they're service based and it's really not they don't really have a coupon based needs. So then, and we're really wanting to kind of highlight the name of the business, the service they're providing, and hopefully a web page, because we really want to tie the digital and the hard copy piece together so that we can drive more people to websites within Center Wellington, because there are still a lot of businesses within Center Wellington that the people that live in Center Wellington don't know exist, don't know what they can all offer, don't know how to get a hold of them, don't know if they're doing curbside pickup. You know, the downtown Fergus and the BIAs have done really good work on that, but we're trying to help to create like a one-stop shop so people, instead of buying stuff through Amazon, we create our own Center Wellington version of Amazon for people to be able to go to be able to support businesses within the community.
Yeah.
Don, sorry, just a follow up to that. The township will be a co-partner with the chamber on that. It will be a 12-page coupon, small ad booklet that will probably go out at the end of March to more than 12,000 residences in Center Wellington and Arthur. So
that's good.
And then Don, just on your comment about high-speed internet, I do want to really reinforce, and I know you guys are tired of hearing me, and I think we are moving forward, and it's amazing. But we again had an agricultural business recently that their kids are trying to learn at home. They were trying to have a service company access a piece of computer equipment to remotely log in to do service. They couldn't, because they couldn't log in because of the speed. So it was requiring a service call, additional costs for them to be able to come out to the site to be able to do servicing. So, I mean, I realize, you know, watching movies and that kind of thing is really important for our own business component that is really missing in the rural areas. And the rural communities that are getting fiber, there's still a lot of, very few farms that have reliable high speed. It's getting better, and I see the light at the end of the tunnel, but we still, and the commitment from the county is amazing. And we will get there, but we still have a long way to go.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. They're the County Road 18 got it, but that then lets you know, the second line and the third line and all the other lines can actually go off. It's like a tree, right? And it's yeah, we all need it. It's no question. Yes, Brett.
A comment or maybe a question for Janet or anyone else who's in the rural area. I know I'm usually the one that brings forward the wireless towers when they come up and they need council to what's called concurrence. And I think in the last, between 2019 and 2020, and I have one more to go, I'm on, I think, my 5th Explorenet tower. And there's one that just went through council the other day for two, one in just outside Bellwood and another one in Shiloh. There's another one coming, it'll go to council at the next council meeting in just outside Imberhaw on the 8th line. So I don't know if those, the towers that Explorenet are putting up are of any help for the places that aren't getting fiber. And if I'm not mistaken, Janet, there was one that I thought would have served you. I just don't know if they're, once we deal with them, you know, they get approved by the feds and how long it takes for them to actually go up. But there was one sort of in the northeast part of the township too.
I can see the one tower you're talking about from my farm, Brett. It's like one concession away. I've called Explorenet, I think 4 or 5 times now. It was put up in June. I watched it go up when we were chopping haylage, and they still can't tell me when I can access it. And I called about 2 weeks ago. So there's a lag at the Explorenet end, which I don't understand from the business piece, but yeah, I'll call them again, see if I can find out a bit more as to what the delay is and what the timeline is.
And unfortunately, there was a company that went through, we just got an inquiry about, that was called Shared Networks, and they went through to get approvals for a couple of towers, but there's no evidence that they've ever gone up. So they got tower approval back in 2018, and the towers don't appear to have actually been installed, which is unfortunate.
Well, and SpaceX is really gaining some momentum in the rural areas, and whether I just sent an email out to them to see if they have capability in our area. Erin does have some capability with low orbiting small size satellites that have huge potential in the agricultural areas. So yeah, there's lots of things coming online.
Yeah, it's all good for all of us. So
I just sent an email to them too, Janet. So hopefully we'll response.
good. Okay, Healthy Growth Advisory Committee had a meeting yesterday. Brett, do you want to? You did the report. We adopted a report that Brett had put forward, and maybe you can explain it, Brett.
Yeah, I think you know, I committed at our December meeting to do a report on some of the things that were in the recommendations from the county's attainable housing strategy. So my report focused on that. Well, a little bit of a sidebar discussion that I won't get into here. But in addition to that, the mayor brought forward some information that I also included in my report that relates to the county's activities and something they've done that's really good news in the budget. Kelly, I don't know if you want me to say it or if you want to talk about it, but also we did pass a resolution sort of reinforcing our commitment to working with the county on the attainable housing, notion of attainable housing, which the county has defined as housing that's affordable to people who live and work in Center Wellington.
So Kelly, did you want to put anything forward on that?
It's really important, and there's a tie-in back to economic development, obviously, because if people can't afford to live here, they're going to choose jobs elsewhere, or else we have a first bedroom community here, and we want to make sure that we have a situation where people can live and work in Center Wellington if they want to. So the county's perspective on this has been economic development driven. So their attainable housing strategy that they pulled together that was finalized last year was driven out of their economic development department. And the reason was we recognized that this was one of the huge barriers to firms relocating within the county is because there wasn't affordable or attainable housing for their employees. So that's why it was driven out of the county. So what the Healthy Growth Committee did yesterday, and we've been talking for the last couple meetings, is to move forward with the commitment that we're going to establish an attainable housing target for Center Wellington. as a first step. So we're going to be working on that so that next time we get together as a healthy growth committee, we have a target. What would make sense in Center Wellington as far as attainable housing? So there's a number of discussions that have to happen, some assumptions that have to be made. But at the end of the day, we recognize that we need to have a stake in the ground and say, we're going to drive towards this. And it helps us to make sure that our conversations are action oriented. The other thing that we did yesterday is we endorsed, and we're asking the Township of Center Wellington Council to endorse the county's investment that they're going to be making in affordable housing. So every third year, the county has committed to doing an affordable housing capital project. And they've ramped up by $500,000 the fund to go to affordable housing. So they've made a pretty substantial investment in affordable housing across the county. And we wanted to make sure as a healthy growth committee that we let the county know that we support what they're doing from an affordable housing perspective. And that when it comes to attainable housing, so the step below affordable housing, so that's the medium range of affordability, that's going to be our one of our key priorities moving forward as a healthy growth committee, is identify real actions that we can take as a township within our sphere of authority. What real action can we take to make a difference in the supply of attainable housing within Center Wellington? So that's there's about 9 different areas that came out of the county's recent study. We're going to take those as our jumping off point, and we're going to be focusing on each one of those actions to see what we can do to make substantial improvements in each one of those. So it's going to direct our discussion as a committee and hopefully drive us to recommended action a little bit more quickly than we've done in the past, because we have to cover this off. It has to be something that we see significant traction on in the next 2 years, because we hear stories and stories about people who can't afford to live here, and it just is not right, and we have to do something about it. So I like where we got. We need to continue to drive towards, so what can we do about it? Because what I'm finding is we're wasting so much time marinating in the problem that we never get towards real solutions and real recommendations to council. So hopefully with this new direction we have, the next meeting, we're going to start to drive towards setting a target and then looking at things like our official plan, looking at things like zoning, looking at things like financial incentives, all those things, and take each one of them and identify what we can do to make sure that we're making a positive difference, because it does come back to economic development really quickly. If we can say that employees can actually live here and they can afford to live here, it's going to be very beneficial for us to attract new businesses to Center Wellington. It's going to feed right into our new business park, making sure that we get that marketing out there that Center Wellington is a great place to live and it's a great place to work. So it ties back, and I think our whole cunning plan to have this task force have a representative in Dawn Valerie at our Healthy Growth Committee. It's working well because we're making sure that both these committees recognize what's going on in each, and we're not at odds with each other. So that part of it, I think, is working really well. Sorry, that was really long. Apologize.
Yeah, it's okay, Kelly. I think we got time. It's important that everybody sort of understands what's going on. So out in the rest of the world here, that's other things are happening to get to the same goal. You know, we have the industrial land. We have a meeting this afternoon on that. So this stuff is moving, and it's really for me, it's gratifying that this stuff is coming together, and I think it's good for all of us to be part of it. So. I guess the other thing is there any council update at all, Kelly or Steve? Steve still here? No. Neil?
Yeah, Neil, you can update them about as far as council. I don't know if there's anything interesting to this committee, but I might be forgetting something.
No, I don't think so. Other than the fact that, we talked about, I think the last time this committee met, we passed our budget. And that's the big thing. As a counselor, I'm concerned, and I'm happy that we're getting going this afternoon, Don. I want that that business park moving as quickly as possible.
Well, Bob, are you able to make it okay this afternoon? Oh. Yeah, good, because let's hope we can get that one kicked down the road so that we can get stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. Economic development update, Pat?
Nothing really beyond what I put in the report. Just other than staff have been working significantly on the patio policy to try to bring some guidelines to the program after last year when we pretty much did what we needed to do to get patios operating and get businesses up and running again after the initial shutdown. So hopefully we have another meeting this afternoon, and hopefully we'll be able to get something to council fairly quickly before sort of patio season starts. So that's one of the things we've been spending an awful lot of time on.
That's great. Anybody else? I was just wondering there, Pat, is there any provision in that for retail to be out on the street?
There is a part of it is a sidewalk display policy. I believe that's one of the things we're talking about this afternoon. The part of the problem is that our sidewalks are narrow, and if we need to maintain social distancing, the more stuff that's out on the sidewalk, the more that becomes difficult to do. And so we do need to control how that happens. With patios, we can allow them to use the use of public spaces, and we have and maintain accessibility and walkways around those. That's more difficult when it's a sidewalk display.
Yeah. So what about like a retail taking a parking spot?
The issue is accessibility and maintaining free and clear access around the whatever they're doing. And we have decided that the parking spaces will be for sidewalk accessibility. So we would have to build a deck that is level with the sidewalks, that provides that walkway if they wanted to use public space that was on the sidewalk. So it becomes more problematic when it's sidewalk displays.
Right.
We needed to get the restaurants up and running first half.
Yeah. No, I was just like, it's just sort of an extension of what we're into, like just stuff to consider. Yeah. Andy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Don, just as per the Roger Brooks program, though, we do allow just along the frontage of the buildings, space, bench, flowers, or a display piece. So that was something that we still do allow. To Pat's point, it's really about accessibility, and we have to look at, a lot of times it's not just about wheelchairs and strollers. It's also about people with visual sensitive, things that they have to deal with. And then as well, we also are trying to kind of consider some of this with the intent of still closing the roads that we had closed last year for the weekends in Elora and Provost in Fergus throughout the summer. So we're trying to manage around those pieces as well, but we're trying to be as flexible as we can.
Well, that's good. It sure was nice to see those restaurants out on the street, especially nice days, and it just makes the whole living environment just that much better. So Pat, maybe if you could just give us a little update on the new members, just so these folks know.
So I've advertised for a new member to replace, unfortunately, to replace Paul. We've also will be looking at cleaning up some of the memberships that are linked to various organizations that we have in our terms of reference. Just indicating that we're going to rep from the Chamber of Commerce. We're going to be asking for a rep from the Community Futures. The Ministry of OMAFRA, Ag and Food has indicated to us that they will not be able to send a rep to the committee on a regular basis. So we'll be changing that to more of an ag-related representative. And just sort of straightening it out because there is a new representative from the Elora BIA. So we will be, hopefully we'll be able to do it so that when those reps change, those organizations can just inform us who their representative is, and we don't have to have that endorsed. That doesn't have to go to council, that it becomes a more automatic thing for us. So I believe Devlin is going to be doing a report to council indicating some of those things, as long with whoever the chosen new member is. So, and I believe that's going to happen this month. Maybe Devlin can address that.
Good. Well, that's good because we need to have those voices as part of this, just just so everybody's on the same plate. I think we're getting kind of near the end. Anybody got anything else? Or Kimberly, anything? No.
So I
Yes.
had just added a link to just remind people that there are, if you are running a business, there are small grants now available from the provincial government, and the provincial government has made it fairly easy. If you wanted to apply for a small business support grant, which is up to $10,000, or in some cases $20,000, grants for PPE and grants for property taxes and energy rebates. It's all one application now. So they've made it much easier. And those links, as I provided in the agenda, those links are on our township page. The tourism adaptation grants that were available for tourism businesses, the application deadline was February 1st. And I do believe they got a pretty good uptake in that. That was between the county, and our local regional tourism organization, sorry. So hopefully that some funding can get out to those tourism businesses that have been particularly hard hit by this.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's nice to hear the kids going back next week. Someday we will get out of jail. Anyhow, has anybody else got anything for the meeting? If not, I'll adjourn it. Next meeting is March the 4th. And I guess I'll see some of you this afternoon. Yeah. Anyhow, best to everybody, and be vigilant and be safe.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Don.
Don.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, Don.